Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Complete It or Beat It. I'm your host, Delilah Lugo, aka Assassina-san, and I'm joined by the very generous Gil, aka Metal Gil Solid, and Elliot, aka Dragonius. And the reason I say generous, go ahead, make it work.
I share my good luck with everyone.
Gil bought me a birthday gift, and I'm very excited about it. He bought me a Doom guy. It's a Bethesda exclusive. It's like the collectibles in Doom 2016, and it goes so I'm really excited, and that's why I called him the generous, and I've eaten a lot of Elliot's steaks. So they're both very generous. I love steak.
And also my good looks.
We all know you're the eye candy of the show. We have you for fan service. Me and Elliot are just...
I'm just the muscle.
So Complete It or Beat It, we are not reviewing a game. We are going to review this game as a completionist. And today we're doing
Uncharted 4.
The Thief's End. So because this is a PlayStation exclusive, we are going to be talking about its trophy list and what it's like to platinum this game. Last week we did God of War. Last
episode.
It's like last year at this point. Sorry about that, guys. We had some technical issues. Our last episode. This is our third time.
This is our third time recording this. I'm so sorry. Pardon our dust.
So please check that out where we reviewed what it's like to platinum God of War.
Link up in that corner.
This platinum is called One Last Time. Extremely relevant. Tier. It's difficulty 2.5 or out of 10 or 5 out of 10, depending if you use exploits, which before our video footage got messed up, we didn't like the word exploits because they're part of the game. They're modifications to the game, like a one-hit kill with your guns, or
like bonuses or unlockables, that kind of thing.
There are in-game cheats which you enable. They're designed by the developers, and then there's what we'd call exploits, which is definitely not intended.
Definitely not intended, but oh, so useful.
Yeah, so unlimited ammo, one-hit kill weapons, auto-aim. They're meant for accessibility, but you can use them to make your platinum experience a lot better, which is why we like platinuming this game.
It's also why we love Naughty Dog.
It can take 21 to 30 hours with the exploits and 36 to 50 hours without them. There's 6 online trophies, 2 missable trophies, 2 glitched, and difficulty trophies. And you need to beat it on the hardest difficulty called Crushing Mode. And the good thing about this is if you beat it on Crushing Mode, you get the trophies for easy. I think it's called Explorer, Easy, Hard, Very Hard, and then Crushing Mode, which is great. Stacking. I think that Capcom needs to take, or whoever creates the trophies for Devil May Cry 5 needs to take a page out of this book, because playing a game like...
No, Devil May Cry never has as a series stacking difficulties. You have to play each and every difficulty. So even if you first play through on normal to get the trophies or achievements for the easy mode, you have to play it, which at that point is just aggravating because it's like, I've beaten this hard of a difficulty. This feels like Baby Town Frolics. I'm trying to go here.
Okay. Just in case we never review Devil May Cry, let's just give it a unanimous beat it.
Oh, yeah.
Devil May Cry, as someone who's completed DMC4 trophy list, just beat it. Don't complete
it. That is 2 reviews in 1. We're making up for all the lost time.
There's one other playthrough-related trophy, Delilah.
What?
The other playthrough-related trophy.
It has to do with time. You wasted a segue.
Oh, sorry. sorry. Yes, there is a speed run. You have to beat the game in 5 hours? 6 hours. Gotcha. We want to thank PlayStationTrophies.org for giving us a roadmap for this conversation. We did use them as reference, so thank you.
So, difficulty-related trophies, if I may. So, Crushing Mode. Hardest one in the game, of course, and speedrun, complete the game in 6 hours or less, and cutscenes and stuff, they're included in that time. So if you want to beat that, you have to skip cutscenes, go quickly, all that jazz. But if you have the physical edition of the game and can go back to the base version without any of the patches on top, there's a much easier way to do these. Not exactly intended, if you refer to our earlier conversation. But there is a way to cheese this and get those trophies easily. Someone take over here.
So in order to get this particular trophy set done, you can actually stack crushing and speed mode at the same time. Now, this requires a physical disc version of the game. So if you have a digital copy, I'm sorry to say you got to do it legit. For the rest of you guys that want to hack along with us, not really hack, but just exploit the crap out of a system, why not? Completely revert your system update data to version 1.0 or 1.01, the base version. You can't be online when you do this, so having already completed the game is a requisite. Once you start a brand new game, complete Chapter 1 or the prologue until you get to Chapter 1. At that point, go back to the main menu, access Chapter Select. Doing so would allow you to access every single chapter and select a difficulty. Having selected the crushing difficulty, just complete the epilogue where there are no enemies and no real long scenes, just the heart-wrenching ones at the end of this. And you guys will be awarded the 2 trophies, 1 for completing the game in under 6 hours, and 2 for beating the game on the hardest difficulty. Yawn.
And then more when you're stacking all of the difficulty, difficulties, yeah. So like 6 trophies.
The only one that I don't believe stacks, because if you've done the thing as I've described, there is no one to shoot at just yet. I don't believe you get the percentage of accuracy trophy from that, but not confirmed. If you want to try it out after this video, let us know.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I didn't use that strategy because on crushing difficulty was grayed out from the menu. So I didn't think you can access it because I was trained from the other Uncharted's that you have to play a lower difficulty and beat the game before you can unlock crushing difficulty. And so I started the game, and halfway through I realized there was this exploit, and I was like, well, I'm kind of in too deep now. I'm just going to go through with it, beat it normally. I earned it legit. But then when I did my speed run, I definitely used the exploits, like the infinite ammo and using the Barak .44 revolver with auto aim, and I got the sharpshooter and the speed run trophy. So that was my approach to it.
So, I mean, just to go over those trophies here, I believe you have to go do a full playthrough with getting 70% or higher shot.
80%.
80. That's even worse.
I could swear to 75.
Yeah. So it's not the hardest trophy in the world. It's just something that you have to be conscious of as you play the game.
As far as miscellaneous trophies go, I find that was one that kind of skewed your playthrough towards single shot weaponry and really
it's 70%.
Oh,
70%. Well, okay. So having
I got 70%, right?
Overachiever, whatever. Got a badass over here.
Playing when she didn't get like a 4.0 on her test, like an A isn't enough.
Yeah, I was one of those kids. I was.
Nothing wrong with it. Work
That's what happens
hard,
when you have a
off.
Latino father, to be honest.
Sí se puede.
So, do you want to go over the combat trophies since we're on that?
Yeah, I guess we can touch on them. They're mostly things that you can earn naturally, especially if you're mix and matching your weapons. And then, thankfully, if you miss any weapon-related trophies, there's an option in the menu to choose every single weapon, and you can earn the weapon-related combat trophies that way. So you don't have to go back to a specific chapter unless you're doing like turret weapons or bombs and explosives. Those are the only ones that you have to go back into a chapter and do. But other than that, it's like stealth attacks, melee attack, do a number of melee attacks, have 10 enemies drop their grenades. And the trophy guide really makes it clear what chapters are the best chapters to achieve these in. So if you don't get them naturally in your playthroughs, then you can always go back and chapter select and get it easily. Is there any combat-related trophies you guys want to highlight?
I mean, yeah, so you discussed like the very generic ones, headshots, stealth takedowns, verticals, stealth takedowns, firing from the hip or blind firing. So those are ones, like, as you say, they can be done throughout the game. Just be mindful of them. Then there are some that really you would have to know what you're doing to get it. You're likely not going to get this naturally, such as rushing roulette. Defeat enemies with the pistol, machine gun, and grenade in that order in 15 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's probably not something you're going to get naturally, but it's still not hard to do. You can chapter select, you can find a good encounter to start from, and then just, keep restarting that encounter until you get it. they're not that bad. There's another one like here. Defeat enemies with a stealth attack, melee attack, headshot, and explosives in that order in 15 seconds. That's run the table.
As a point of conversation, though, because a lot of these trophies that we like keep talking about are ones that have appeared in Uncharted games before, like Uncharted in the Nathan Drake collection, 1, 2, and 3. They do share a fair amount of these miscellaneous trophies, and they share with them a lot of the same kind of grindiness that I'm not necessarily a fan of in like a third-person shooter adventure style game, like going through and having that grindiness. So I just like, from your perspective, does it add to your experience? Does it add to just pad out the gameplay? Is it something where you feel like it's warranted because the intended way of getting them is to do multiple playthroughs and you'll kind of unlock them naturally across that time span? Or is it just an unnecessary grind?
I feel like just because of the amount that you're required to do, it's not an unnecessary grind. Like I platinumed Anthem. Do you know how many weapon kills, every different type of weapon you need there? Here, I feel like it's just the right amount to like just give you a taste of each of the different kinds of weapons. You know, like defeat 10 in 60, defeat 10 enemies in 60 seconds with the China Lake grenade launcher, 10 enemies in a minute. Get the launcher, go to town. You know, it's not something I'm gonna have to grind for or struggle with. I think they're fine. Honestly,
well there's specifically with like the stealth takedowns, there's certain like trophies that regard aerial stealth takedowns, and there's one particular chapter select that I remember restarting the same checkpoint 10, 20, 30 times even, just to make sure, because that's the best spot to do it according to the guides, that you can drop on top of these enemies and get that done. Certain other things that are very like limited in their availability to do over the course of a playthrough, such as shooting enemies and killing enemies while you're swinging from ropes and things of that. You know, in some cases, like heat of the moment, playing on the harder difficulties, you're not necessarily going to want to be outside of cover. So this is something where, you know, you're definitely encouraged to go on the easier playthroughs or on like a more explorative playthrough, I should say. And I can totally get behind that. But for me, something that, you know, is that limited, is that specific, I tend to find grindy myself. And for that, like, I'm not super duper fond of it, no matter how awesome the gameplay surrounding it is.
I would agree with you if it were 300 vertical stealth takedowns instead of 30. But with 30, I feel like that's what, 5 minutes of restarting checkpoints. If it, like, in addition to what you've already gotten throughout your playthrough, I just don't feel like it's that big a deal that it stresses me out.
Yeah, it doesn't stress me out. I agree with you. It is kind of annoying to have to go back and just play through the chapter simply to get the kills. But it's not grindy. I would just say it's like, okay, I got to do this, like a quick little cleanup. But you know, after platinuming a game like Wolfenstein Youngblood, this is really, really like, I appreciate how little amount of kills they made you do for these combat-related trophies. And while I don't think it's the greatest thing, I do think the game offers more opportunities than not to actually get these kind of combat trophies in your natural playthrough, where it really does feel like a quick cleanup if you don't get certain combat trophies. So why don't we move on to collectibles? So we have 109 treasures, which are hidden around the world and they glitter. So they're pretty easy to find. Some of them are better hidden, but most of them you just see a little glimmer in the distance and you pick it up and ding. 23 notes, which are pretty much in your face on your direct path, and 3 strange relics, and 36 optional conversations, which you may or may not consider a collectible. The optional conversations, essentially, it's just if you're traveling with your buddy, whether it be Sam or Elena, you get a little triangle above your head and you press it and it unlocks a conversation that you don't necessarily have in the main game. There's also 3 strange relics.
I would say the relics are probably my favorite of the collectibles, just because as awesome as every single Uncharted game is with all the collectibles in terms of, like, you know, being well related to the overall story, you know, whether it be Spanish doubloons and things like that in Uncharted 1, or, you know, more cultural relics that are related to, you know, the architecture and things like that in Uncharted 2. Uncharted 4 does like a great job with these particular 3 like specials. So you have the returning precursor orb from Jak and Daxter. You have the Wampa fruit from Crash Bandicoot from PS1. And then the third one,
the Firefly dog tag.
Oh yeah, that's right, from The Last of Us. So
Yes.
while kind of out there and kind of like I wonder what this is. It's a cool nod to the legacy that Naughty Dog at this point have really built for themselves in the industry.
This game was full of Easter eggs, and we can get to that a little later when we talk about the miscellaneous trophies. But
Absolutely.
basically, there's an entire chapter dedicated where you're exploring your attic and you're in Elena's house, and it's just full of every Uncharted games, like collectibles and ancient artifacts and all that cool stuff. Since we're talking about The Last of Us with the Fire Flag dog tag, I do want to say there was a poster at the end of the game. It had a girl that looked like Ellie. She had red hair, but she was pregnant, which most would assume was her mom. And at that time, we hadn't known that The Last of Us 2 was confirmed. So I think a lot of people were speculating, like, oh my God, this is The Last of Us 2 coming. No one was really sure, and it got people really hyped. But it was actually just from a Dark Horse comic book. And it was pretty much a prequel that dealt with Ellie and Ridley's adventures before the DLC Left Behind. So that was just a cool little nod to The Last of Us as well, that none of the trophies capture, but I really appreciated and wanted to make a note of.
I mean, I think Naughty Dog does a really good job of that self-referential, like, Easter eggs that they put into their games, whether it is something like the relics that we mentioned, different posters in the world, or even in Uncharted 3 where you go to, or sorry, in The Last of Us, where you go to the bar from the first chapter of Uncharted 3. Like, you go to that bar and you can fight in it, and vice versa, which no one discovered for maybe like a year after. In that bar scene, there's actually a newspaper clipping that references The Last of Us with like the cordyceps breakout and this infection going on in the Midwest or something like that. So Naughty Dog is rife with that.
Okay, before we digress any further, if I may, could we just get back to the collectibles trophies?
I love them. Mostly because you can do chapter select and go back and clean up what you miss. And there's nothing worse than missable collectibles where you have to have a guide in front of you.
I feel like the best example of this, though, is Madagascar, just because as finicky as certain optional conversations can be, they're probably my favorite of the collectibles to get, just because I'm someone who really deeply enjoys lore building. So having anything and everything in my ability to say, hey, let me get, that little extra tidbit, that little extra nugget of knowledge, just like to have, just to enjoy the characters I am already well invested in with my emotions and my time. So I definitely say for me, of all the physical collectibles or optional collectibles, Madagascar specifically for all the optional conversations you can have, probably my favorite.
Normally I look at a game and I see like, oh, I got to get all these collectibles, and it's not even like X amount out of Y, you got to get them all. My thing is the game rewarding you for getting these collectibles? And I say yes. Each collectible, you pick it up, you can inspect it, you can look at the model of it. Optional conversations, you get a little bit of dialogue, notes, you get all the funny stuff in Nathan Drake's journal. And let's face it, this is one of the most beautiful games on the PS4. And that getting all these collectibles encourages you to seek out and explore. You see a lot of cool areas that you don't see otherwise. Like I mentioned this in the our second attempt at recording this episode. There is a part near the end of the game where you grapple down via your grappling hook and you see this huge pirate ship in the distance, and that's where you're going to go. But then there is a little cave on the way down where you kind of have to swing back and forth to get into, and there is a treasure there. I did not notice that on my first playthrough. I wouldn't have known that was there, and I thought it was cool that, hey, this little collectible gets me to go in that cool swingy cave.
Yeah, I love that it helps you explore every single corner of that game, and because it's such a beautiful game, it makes it worth it.
Exactly.
I think that's like the big take home from any like first party or PlayStation exclusive game, whether it's Uncharted, whether it's Horizon, whether it's Spider-Man. The console is capable of rendering these gorgeous environments, and we're fortunate to have developers that can build these worlds and give us reason to want to live in them.
So let's just brush over the multiplayer trophies, because
brush under the rug, more like.
Brush it, yeah, exactly. So you complete the introduction. It's like a 2-minute tutorial. You do 5 matches. You do all the multiplayer trials, and that's basically just like training against bots. You get gear, sidekick attacks, mysticals, which are mystical, honestly. It's just like little magic abilities you can unlock, spawn 10 sidekicks, and revive 10 allies. And you can do this all without someone else.
I mean, we all hate the fact that there are multiplayer trophies, but we get them done super quickly within, a few hours. Get them out of the way. It's just you would get them by playing naturally. You don't really have to go out of your way with these.
For people that hate multiplayer, like there are myself, like I'm not always a fan of multiplayer, especially with a game that traditionally is typically seen as a single player experience for me. Uncharted being one of them, but the fact that the trophies are that simple to get, that they don't take that ridiculously long, and that for the most part, all the multiplayer quote unquote that they relate to is basically just like a glorified horde mode or just like a PvE mode. I'm okay with it. Like I don't hate Naughty Dog for this, but typically, and I'll say this is a going forward for me personally, if we ever review a game that has multiplayer related trophies, it really does put like a big negative point on it for me, just for the fact that I typically don't care for multiplayer trophies. Unless they're, straightforward, like get to this base level just to kind of get a flavor for what the multiplayer is, not necessarily the prestige 15, 20 times.
Yeah.
AKA Red Dead Redemption.
Versus Brotherhood.
Yeah, exactly. Assassin's Creed was a bad offender. Like, it had a very good, unique multiplayer, but we can talk about that another time.
Brotherhood makes you go to like the max level, which takes forever. Revelations in Assassin's Creed 3, they're only like level 15 or level 20.
Assassin's Creed 3 had the easiest ones for multiplayer. It was just do Wolfpack, do this PV, do this co-op mode essentially.
I think we have a future podcast in mind, maybe.
I think we do too.
I think we don't. I don't want to go through Assassin's Creed.
Come join us on our future podcast.
You've done it already.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's okay.
Our next side project podcast, it's called Multiplayer.
Yeah, the only multiplayer I could stand was Overwatch, and
Overwatch, maybe some Halo.
It's meant to be multiplayer. That's not a single player game like Assassin's Creed or Uncharted with tacked on multiplayer. That is a multiplayer game.
And The Last of Us, I'm not gonna lie, I loved it. I don't know. But
because The Last of Us, like Mass Effect 3, the multiplayer is tied into the single player, like canonically. It makes sense to exist there. With that said, I think we've.
So does Assassin's Creed. There's that whole Animus Project thing with Abstergo, but let's get past that.
Yes.
Animus Project. Ugh.
Miscellaneous secret trophies.
Yeah, I just want to say the Uncharted is a good multiplayer. It was fun. Whether you got into it or not, it was good.
Do it for the emotes. It was the Fortnite of its day.
The miscellaneous trophies are our favorite kind of trophy, I think unanimously, and especially in this game. So why don't you guys pick some of your favorites, and then we'll clean up after that.
Okay, I think if I may, I'll pick a favorite that we all love. Which one is it? Stage fright. Just prior to City Chase, stand perfectly still for 30 seconds. What does that mean? Why is this trophy in the game? I'll tell you. No, I won't tell you. Why don't you tell them?
Okay, so E3, the year before the game comes out, a tech demo, which is common to kind of get hype for the game, comes out. On stage, the game goes to a beautiful cutscene overlooking a wonderful, magnificent space. Unfortunately, once gameplay was received by the person on stage, the game itself had no controller input. Thus, Nathan Drake is standing there for something like 30 plus seconds, it felt like, just dead in the water, doing nothing but standing idle. Naughty Dog took this in stride and decided that they would make a trophy reference to it, so when the full game releases, if you get to the same point in the game, and you, instead of touching and going and moving and kind of getting right into the action, decide to just stand there for 30 seconds and not move, you earn yourself a trophy. Stage fright. Humble reference, but hilarious.
I'm gonna make note of Glamour Shot, which is where you're in this puzzle room and you have to give Sam, your brother, a call to help you figure out some pirate sigils. And instead, you can take your smartphone and instead of taking a picture of the pirate sigils, you turn it to Victor fucking Sullivan and you take a selfie.
Victor goddamn Sullivan.
Yeah, and then boop, a trophy pops.
Before we talk about any of the miscellaneous ones that we didn't like, dolphins. Excuse me. My probably favorite one, because you get to experience it twice. It's a generational Easter egg miscellaneous trophy. It's Crash Bandicoot. You get one of probably the most like infamously like beloved levels of Crash Bandicoot 1 on the PS1 that you get to play through as Nathan Drake. And while playing through that in the original part of the campaign, you have no chance of actually completing it or getting that trophy. In the epilogue of the game, you get to enjoy that generationally as his daughter. And as his daughter, you can actually unlock a trophy for collecting all of the boxes in that level.
Oh, yeah. If I may interrupt, folks, there are spoilers here.
Oh, yeah, oops.
Definite
I should
spoilers.
have said that at the top of the show. I'm sorry.
Hey, if you've watched episode 1, you know it's going to be spoilerific. We're talking about everything related to the trophy listing.
You hear that, you 8 people? You should know this already.
Probably my favorite miscellaneous trophy because it emotionally just like puts you into a place of just, yes, I'm playing a third person action adventure, shooter, explorative, beautiful game, but for a moment, just a moment, let me take things back to a simpler time when all that mattered was running down a lone corridor as a bandicoot that had no neck because it was easier to draw in polygons that way.
Simpler time. That game was way harder than Uncharted.
If you're a noob, you can still earn this trophy because you can enable a slow motion cheat. But I don't think any of us did that.
No, I didn't know that I could. But the fun thing is if you do enable slow motion, apparently you can slow-mo Crash. Who knew?
Yeah.
I did enable slow motion for another trophy. I don't know about you guys.
And what would that be?
That would be Swordmaster. Perfectly parry Wraith in the sword fight without getting slashed or stabbed.
Yeah.
Did that one legit. Regret it. I blacked that out of my memory. It's like a Vietnam like vet would. I just blocked it out.
Final encounter in the game. You're in a sword fight against the final boss. I mean, it's doable, but like
it's the most challenging fight in the game.
It's the single most challenging fight in the game because to that point you have never had to do any kind of sword fighting, and I think that is one of the weirdest things where you've gone through 99.8% of the game existing in third-person run and gun to some degree, and every other fight you've ever done through in every other boss, whether it's Uncharted 1, 2, or 3, has ended in some way, shape, or form with you chest-high walls and guns. That's typically been it. But for some reason, this one decided to, no, we're going to go for that extra mile, we're going to go for that authenticity, it's going to be a sword fight. Learn the controls, master them, and never get hit once.
Yeah, and it's not like, a hack and slash sword fight where you can just easily pick it up and learn it. Like, it's like you have to press one button to go to the left and one to the right. And you don't know which way he's going to slash, so you have to learn his, body movement before he does it. It's very challenging.
It's fencing. But in Uncharted, the only discredit that I give it is that you can't skip to the fight. If you fail it, there is like a short, but it feels longer every time you reload it, cutscene to get to the beginning of that fight.
Another miscellaneous trophy that I enjoyed was Don't Feed the Animals. So when in the beginning of chapter 11, you're in the market square, there's these two ladies selling apples. You can buy the apple or you can just pass them because they just look like NPCs blending in the marketplace. Some that you can interact with, some that you can. These ladies you can if you go in the right direction. And if you have that apple and you buy it, then you go further and there's a man with a lemur on his shoulder and you can interact with the guy too. And once you walk away from the guy, the lemur will jump on your shoulder and steal your apple.
These are the best trophies. These are cute little Easter eggs. They just make the world seem more vibrant, and it's just cute little secret things that could be a pleasant surprise while you're playing. There's no high stakes, there's no stress, you're not fighting enemies when you get these trophies, and those are the kinds I like.
Yeah, the first time I saw the lemur, I was like, oh my god, a lemur, and I went straight to it, and then I looked at the trophy, I was like, oh fuck. It still was cute as hell though.
I think it's probably the good time to segue to the ones we didn't like so much.
There's a few good ones left. But
then by all means, I just have nothing but hate in my heart for sea mammals.
Well, go ahead and say it, and then we'll go back to the good ones so we can maybe end on a good note.
Dolphins. That's it. that's genuinely it. You have to
censor fuck when we've been saying it this whole time.
Look, man. Look, when I do it, all right. That there's a trophy as you're on a boat. looking through with Sam to try and get like, a path open to the inside of the mountain, and you have to get 3 dolphins to follow your boat. And yes, there are pseudo designated spawn points, and the video guides are fantastic. But I, for some reason, had no luck with finding these dolphins, and it took me a lot longer than I ever wanted it to, just to randomly drift about in a boat and collect 3 dolphins.
Still kind of RNG.
Yeah, and for that, like, I'm just, like, a little annoyed by it. If it was one of those things where it's like, all right, if you go to this area and it's a consistent, like, it'll happen every time, or if it's, like, 50-50, whatever, of it happening this time, cool, I'll just go to another one, wrap around, and come back, and okay, there it is, fine. But the fact that it is just so RNG aggravates the living crap out of me.
Yeah, sometimes when you had 2 dolphins following you and then you go to the third one, then one of them is just suddenly gone and you're like, oh no, sucks.
Did that happen to you?
It did a few times,
Really?
I think.
Oh.
I didn't look at a video for it. I just kind of went to find the dolphins, which was probably my mistake, and waited for the cue of like Sam to like be like, oh, there's a dolphin.
If I can bring our attention to the Ludonarrative Dissonance Trophy, may I?
Yeah.
So this one is plain and simple: defeat 1,000 enemies. But this is a little self-referential trophy here. So the term ludonarrative dissonance refers to how, you're always following the protagonist in a story, and he's the good guy, but you don't realize that this person is killing so many people. But they're still played off as the good guy. So it's self-referential because in Uncharted 2, when you fight the final boss Lazarevich, he even comments on it. He's like, "Oh, you think you're the good guy, but how many of my men have you killed here?" So Naughty Dog is just like, yeah, let's make that an actual trophy, Let's
Nice.
refer to that. So
Yeah.
I love how they always just, go back to the, Marco Polo returns.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
Uncharted game you play Marco Polo. You do that here too in the ocean.
Yep.
So, yeah, I just love all the references. Great.
Yep. Speaking of Lazarevich, there's a trophy where you go into the attic and you grab a toy gun and you start hitting targets. And one of the targets is Lazarevich's face. But you get the trophy for hitting all of the targets, not just him.
Cute, fun trophies with the epic Uncharted music.
And then, Gil, you mentioned in our long lost recording to climb the clock tower.
Yes, I love climbing shit in video games. I don't know about you guys.
That's why we play Assassin's Creed.
In the landscape, yeah. If I see a tall thing in the landscape, I'm like, I want to climb that. I wanna see what the view is from up there. I would have done that anyway, even without knowing about this. So it was cool to climb up there and have a trophy pop up. Hey, we're rewarding you for climbing up here and taking a look around.
Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I love seeing that shit.
And then the last miscellaneous trophy that we didn't mention is kind of a collectible in a way, where you knock over all the rock cairns in Madagascar. There's about 16 of them. And Madagascar is like this kind of open area. It's the most open area in the game, whereas most of the game is pretty linear. So it was nice to be able to explore that and knock down those rock cairns with your Jeep, and you get a trophy for it.
Of all the driving segments in Uncharted history, I think that Jeep is probably the coolest, because it feels the most like natural. It doesn't feel shoehorned into the game. It just genuinely feels like a part of the game, part of the environment.
Lost Legacy has a better Jeep because it's the same Jeep, but without the freaking the thingy.
The winch?
Yeah.
I have not played Lost Legacy yet. It's on my to play list.
Rectify that. It's pretty much Uncharted, but like half the size and just as good, And no winch.
Yes, and you also get an item that helps you, that like rings and vibrates when you're by collectibles, which I wish they would have had in Uncharted 4 Thieves End.
That's a good quality of life.
Yeah, I mean it's a great video. Like, just as a little aside, Lost Legacy is it's more like there's a big hub world with 3 to 4 dungeony areas where you always return to the hub after, as opposed to Uncharted's like straight linear story with one open area. Lost Legacy, it's not just because it was planned to be a DLC and became a spin-off, it is no lesser.
And then there was a quick puzzle solving trophy where you have to complete the first trial in Scotland in 10 moves or less. And there's no guide for this. It's randomized, so you have to kind of just figure it out. But it's very simple, so it's no big deal.
Plan ahead, super simple. Other miscellaneous trophies, like after being marooned, leave everyone alive until the treasury. So you're pretty much gonna have to stealth or run past, but not that difficult.
Especially if you play Metal Gear.
Metal Gear.
Drive away in the Jeep with Elena without killing enemies. I don't remember doing this because it was so long ago, but I feel like this one could have been a little frustrating.
It was a little frustrating just because I believe it counted if Elena killed people. And for some reason, the second you had to go for that vehicle, she became just like a ridiculous sniper with a shotgun. She was just painting people's brains against the walls all of a sudden.
You had to do it on a harder difficulty, so
that way they
enemies
wouldn't
didn't
die. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So what do you think of this platinum? Complete it or beat it?
I will say, if you have the physical edition, complete it because it's worth it. If you have to do a speed run, that's up to you. I'd say get all the collectibles, have fun with all the fun trophies, and just get what you want there. So conditionally completed.
As someone who definitely loves story mode more than anything, if you're just coming at this as a casual, just I've played Uncharted 1, I've played Uncharted 2, I've played Uncharted 3. Let's go through it. Let's get to the end. Let's see how this journey kind of like comes to a close, you know? I think in that case, just beat it. If, however, your mindset is more, I have gone through Uncharted 1, 2, and 3. I've gotten everything. I've done everything. I've completed them, and I have to complete that love of this franchise. Then, by all means, go for the complete it. Personally, having platinum the game, I would say I don't feel any more fulfilled for it the way I did necessarily for God of War. For God of War, I definitely felt more fulfilled getting the platinum. So for me personally, beat it. So
you'll enjoy this game whether you beat it or complete it. But it's super approachable to platinum this game, more approachable than most games, and definitely the most approachable Uncharted. So I say complete it. I want to announce the next game that we're doing.
In a minute.
There you go.
All right.
See you guys next time.
See you guys in episode 3.